Hello, everyone. It is so good to see you. My name is Mark Dolfini. We are going to be talking about networking and why it maybe isn't working, or maybe why your networking is not working. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So if you are here signed up for that, you're in the right spot. So before we get any further started, I want to hear from you. Where are you from? What do you do? What do you keep busy with? I'd like to know what kind of work that you're in. And also tell us where you're from. We'd love to hear like what parts of the world are joining us. We've been getting lots of people from all over the globe, which is kind of cool because that was never really my intent to have like a global reach, but that's kind of cool that that's happening. So uh, really just kind of promote this to the United States, but it's nice to see our foreign friends joining us and offering your different perspectives. So it's good to see you. Carl, you are from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, a sales specialist. Excellent. This is going to be right up your alley. Carl, Beth, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you could join us again. Dark Rose Delights. I'm not sure what that sounds like a bakery. Edmonton, airbase in Canada. Oh, okay, very cool. You bake cookies with a name like that, Dark Rose Delights. I am glad to know that you're a bakery and that your parents did not name you that. So, and maybe they did. I don't know, but that is great. Let's see, Michelle. It's good. Yep, glad you could be here with us again, Michelle. Jason, Miami, student at FIU studying marketing. Excellent. Jason, this is going to be this is going to be very helpful for you, especially if you have been a student. And as I tell you, I have actually done some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about here at the end. I actually went to Purdue to talk about networking because there was a lot of disconnects between what networking really is and what it's not. And there's people who just really struggle about what networking really is and what they think it is. And it ends up being something that's not helpful. So I'm glad that you're here today. Give you lots of credit for doing stuff outside of what you're learning just in school. Financial advisor Edward Jones in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Very good. I'm glad you could join us, Ben. And it's really cool, Ben. I understand, again, financial advisors have a very strict set of rules in terms of how they need to operate within. So this is all stuff that is going to be very helpful for you, I'm sure. So we've got people coming in from all over. Again, if you're just coming in, just letting you know, let us know where you're from and what it is that you do, what you keep busy with. A couple quick housekeeping items. First and foremost, we're going to be spending the next 57 minutes together. Let's make the best use of that time. Set aside anything else, any other work that you have. Try to stay dialed in as much as you possibly can and do not multitask. If you're multitasking, you're not as effective as you think you are. And this is going to be a lot of information in a very short period of time. Yes, there will be a link to a replay. We will be sending that out to you probably within the next day or so. And just want to so keep an eye on that for email from me and making sure that you actually have the replay. That's first and foremost. Do I want to get that out of the way? But don't multitask. I want to make sure that you are getting as much as you possibly can. And I don't want you to miss a nugget. And here's the thing. If you are used to multitasking, how effective do you think you are as a networker? If someone's coming up and you're wandering off in the conversation, not really paying attention, and you think that you're paying attention, but you're not. Train your brain just like a muscle. Train your brain to start dialing in and staying focused over periods of time. Because I'm telling you, being able to concentrate and stay focused for set periods of time is probably one of the best things that you can do to be much more effective in whatever business endeavor that you possibly can be in. Train your brain to stop that multitasking lie and be much more dialed in to where you're at. So again, for the next 55 minutes, here we are. I'm going to want you to train your brain to be focused and concentrated. I know it will be a struggle. I know you can do it. And then on the other side of the hour, treat yourself nice. Go for a walk, get a tea or a coffee or whatever your thing is, and treat yourself nice. Give yourself your brain that time to cool off. All right. So what we're going to be talking about here is your networking not working? And I want to make sure that I'm going to ask you right now for each and every one of you to pay attention to something for me, because I am looking to connect with business owners and entrepreneurs who are in the service industry, maybe the contracting industry. They might be in the service industry where they might be coffee shop owners. They might be in the real estate business, like sales or rentals or property management, or they might be like contracting, like heating and air conditioning, or general contractors who do room additions. What did I do just there? What did I just ask for right there? I want you to type in the chat, what did I just do? and I'm going to pause, and I'm going to look, I'm going to watch who is paying attention. What did I just do right there? I'm waiting for you guys. Come on. What did I do? So Ben, you are Benjamin Holly Edward Jones. All the ways to contact me. Excellent. Okay. If you guys are going to respond, here's what I'm going to tell you. I just asked for a referral. So the thing is, if you're asking for a referral, here is what, hang on one second. Okay, there we go. So here's the thing. I asked for a referral up front. You guys don't know me at all, but I'm asked you to start paying attention to who it is that I'm looking for. Now, who it is that I'm looking for specifically is, I am looking to connect with business owners and entrepreneurs who might be in the service industry or the contracting industry. And I want you to think of coffee shop owners, maybe people in the real estate business, maybe people in property management, maybe people who are in the heating and air or general contractors who do room additions. I was highly specific in my ask, right? That's what networking is. And you can't possibly be effective in your marketing if you're not clear in terms of who you're trying to attract. That's called a pre-frame. And it's a very powerful way to get people to think about what it is that you are looking for. So if your networking is not working, how specific are you being in your ask? And I don't care if you're in sales. I don't care if you're in your marketing. If you're trying to attract everybody, you will wind up with nobody. So I'm just making this point right first and foremost that first, like right out of the gate, that this is about being specific in who it is that you're looking for and what offers that you bring to the table. So this is why, and networking is really what winds my clock. I was in the BNI world, which is the Business Networking International organization, for 14 years, and I was in all aspects of that organization. And I really got to understand what networking is and really what networking wasn't. And I came to realize that the value of my net worth was directly related to the quality of my network. That is very, very true. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the Viper methodology, which is the framework in which I teach everything around this. It's an acronym. We'll get into that here in a second. We're going to talk about the 4 core functions of business. Then we're going to talk about lead generation specifically in terms of one of the 4 core functions of business. This will make sense in a minute. We're going to talk about, obviously, we're going to get to networking and then different success strategies to make your networking, put it on fire. Just pour gas on it once you understand what is working. So we are going to be taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. That's what the Viper methodology does. So let me just stop and press pause for a second. For the next roughly 10 to 12 minutes, I'm going to be talking about strategy. I'm talking about a top-down approach. I'm not going to be talking about networking right now. I'm going to be talking about creating a strategy that you can incorporate networking into. But this won't make sense unless you understand the strategy first. Okay, so give me just a little bit of grace to explain the Viper methodology first, and then you can back into it where in terms of networking. And I will get granular in terms of some specific things. The other thing is I want to let you know that at the end, I have an offer to make for you folks. I wasn't really here thinking about selling anything, but I do want to make an offer to you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to deliver a bunch of value for you for the next 50 minutes. And then at the end of the hour, I'm going to share with you some free resources. And then anybody who wants to leave, you can leave. And then I'll make the offer with you. And then anybody who wants to stick around, I'll just demonstrate what that is. Okay. So it'll probably take about 10 minutes afterwards. But if you want to leave, you can leave after that. So just want to let you know, everyone is free to leave anytime that they want. You'll get the replay, but I'm just letting you know I'm going to make an offer at the end for some additional resources that might, some are free, but some do cost a few bucks. So let's look at the Viper methodology first and foremost. The Viper framework is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. I'm not going to get super granular on each one of these. I am going to spend a little bit more time on vision because it directly impacts your ability to attract the type of person that you want, given the type of product or service that you have. Okay, so we're trying to match the client avatar with the core purpose of the business. That'll make sense here in just a second. So let's look at vision first and foremost. Vision, before I do that, let me go back really quick and just kind of do a quick run through of this because I'm not going to do a very deep dive once I kind of relay what the Viper method is. Vision is about basically where you want to go. We're going to come back to that. Infrastructure is the bones of the business, the desks, the chairs, the software, things like that. It's websites and so forth. Process is simply how you do stuff. So from a process perspective, there's a tactical day-to-day process stuff, and then there is strategic planning, which is about, hey, you built this system, you built this warship, now you want to take the warship out of the harbor. Make sense? So there's a tactical process and there's strategic process, strategic planning, which is part of that process. Okay. So you've got vision, infrastructure, process. Next is execution, which is simply what stuff are you going to do? What stuff are you going to actually execute on that is going to be moving the needle towards your strategic plan and towards your vision? Okay. So you gotta identify the execution items. And then of course the reporting function. The reporting function just tells you how things are going. Are you closer to your goal? Are you further away from your goal? What is going on based on your execution? So that's the Viper method in 60 seconds or less. Let's get to vision. Vision is specifically broken into two main parts, which is personal vision and business vision. Now, personal vision is going to simply ask you a question of, okay, where do you want to go? Where do you, was it Andres? Where do you want to go? Right? Olivia, where do you want to go? Right? So you're saying you're a student. Oh, I've got a few students from FIU. Very good. Glad that you could join us today. So here's the thing. Where do you want to specifically go in your life? Have you woke up tomorrow with $30 million or 30 million pounds or whatever amount of money? It seems like a lot of money to you. What would you do if you can't live a life like Justin Bieber with $30 million, but you do have to be a good steward of money still. But if you were making, as much money as you wanted to make, or you had $30 million where you really didn't have to worry about income generation anymore, what would your day-to-day life look like from a personal vision perspective? Okay. That's personal vision. And that's really important. And I know for some of you younger folks, you might think, well, let me make 50 grand a month and then I'll figure out what that personal vision is going to be like. I'm letting you know that I've been thinking about this for decades. I'm in my 50s now. And this is where you go, wow, he doesn't look anywhere near like he's 50, except you younger folks. You might think that's old. Anyway, 50 years old. Here I am at 52, closing in on 53 pretty fast. And I have a personal vision that I am living every single day. Right. And I make pretty decent money, but my income does not dictate what my personal vision is, right? Like it's like those two are like my business vision exists to serve my personal vision. And that's when you're asking that second question around business vision is cool. You've got this personal vision. How are you going to get there? The business vision, the career vision, whatever you want to look at. I know there's some college students in here and maybe some of you aren't interested in entrepreneurship, but if you have a career vision, how is your career vision going to deliver your personal vision? And if those two things don't match, I'm letting you know that kind of life sucks. Ask me how I know. I've been there way too long, way too many years spent chasing too many rabbits, not getting the thing that I wanted. So the danger in creating a business vision or a career vision before you create a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business, or you end up creating a life that exists to serve the career. I'm telling you that sucks. Like I've been down that road for probably 2 decades. I spent doing that. And finally, when I got in my 40s, I'm like, what am I doing? This is awful. And I had a real estate business where I had built up $6.5 million worth of real estate that was bringing in about $65,000 a month. And I was in my early 30s. And it was during that period of time that everyone's thinking like, man, I am crushing it. I'm living my life, like everything's amazing. And by the time I got to my mid and late 30s, I was working probably close to 80 to 90 hours a week. I would have probably made more money if I just stayed at a corporate job. And granted, I wouldn't have had as much control over my life, but my life was horrific. And even though I was bringing in that kind of money, my life was horrendous. And the thing was, when I got into got into 2008 and 2009, back when the recession hit, my business was crazy, not good. And when 2009 came along and pretty much wiped out that $65,000 in revenues, went to $30,000 in revenues, I was sucking wind really hard. And I had created this life that was around this business vision. And the thing was, so instead of working just, 17 and 18 hours a day, now I'm working like 20 hours a day. grabbing naps in the parking lot wherever I could just to kind of keep the balls in the air. And eventually that kind of lifestyle caught up with me, and I did. And I ended up getting sick. I got a cold, and I did the right thing, went to a doctor. A doctor says, here, take this medicine and go get some rest. So I took the medicine and went right back to work. And it was about 2 days later that things went really sideways for me and my health. About the only way that I could breathe is if I was putting pressure against my chest and leaning over the back of a chair. Something was really wrong. This time I didn't go to the doctor. I went to the hospital. I went to the ER. Now, this hospital at that point in time was newly built. And I walked in, and the hospital had only been open a few weeks, and they're still kind of getting their systems and triage stuff figured out. So they put me in a triage room, and they put me on a gurney and told me to lay down. And I put on the gown and laid down, and they left the room and shut the door. And before long, I realized that I couldn't get up. I physically didn't. I was too weak to get up, and I started to feel tingling in my fingers and tingling in my feet. And the edges of my vision started to get fuzzy at the edges until it started to descend into this tiny pinpoint of light way off in the distance. I thought to myself, wow, this is how I'm going to die. I was incredibly calm. I wasn't freaking out, which is the effect of hypoxia. I was actually starving my brain of oxygen, and I was mouthing for air like a fish out of water. And I resigned myself to my fate, and I closed my eyes for what I thought would be the last time. I got woken up to some sense of awareness when they were fitting a mask over my face and kind of realizing where I was at. And then they admitted me to the hospital. And then the next morning I woke up in the hospital having been admitted, and come to find out I had double pneumonia. And this was the interesting thing, that when I woke up, and I actually felt really good at that moment in time. I actually felt like, wow, okay, I'm ready to get back to it. This doctor comes in, and she refers to herself as a hospitalist. And I never heard that phrase before. And this hospitalist is standing in front of me. She's wearing a white doctor's coat, stethoscope around her neck. She had shoulder length, dark hair. And she, started talking with me. And she says, I know you're eager to get out of here, to get back to doing whatever it was you were doing. And I said, yep, I'm ready to go. And she says, I'm just letting you know, I know you feel better right now, but she says, if you check yourself out of here, if you make it back, you're going to be way worse off. So this is exactly where you need to be right now. I said, okay. And she turns to leave, and she stops for a second. She turns back, and what she was about to tell me changed the course of my life forever. She looked at me, and she was about my age. At that time, I was in my late 30s. And she puts her hands in the front pockets of her doctor's coat, and she says, I got to tell you, someone who looks like you at your age doesn't lay in a hospital bed like this. She said, you need to get a really good look at what's going on in your life that puts you in a hospital bed right now. And with that, she left the room. And she was 100% right. I was literally working myself to death, and I was eager to go out and do it again. And that was because I didn't have a very clear personal vision of what I was actually doing all this for. I had made a good living in the corporate world before. I worked for the Marriott. I worked for an accounting firm. Like, I had done all those things. I have a degree in accounting. That was not serving me well. And what I was doing was serving me way, way, way worse. So I just want to make sure, we're going to put the fries in the bag on personal vision right now, but I want to encourage you, please, 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 please set aside some time to write out a personal vision. Maybe think of what your life could be around a 100th birthday speech or something along those lines, where if you're turning 100 years old, who would you want in the room? What would you say to the people in the room? And what would be the message that you would want people to take outside of the room? Okay. Let's move on to business vision. When it comes to business vision, there are 3 C's of business vision, and that is core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, and client avatar. We are going to unpack each of these a little bit. Again, we're taking a strategic top-down approach to creating this business vision around this networking that to make you much more effective. Okay, so stay with me here. I promise we're going to get there. Core purpose is specifically what business that you're in and what problems that you solve. Even though you may be working for someone else, or whether it's your business or someone else's business, you understanding what business that you're in and what problems that you specifically solve, it is really important that you know that you are really specific in your answers. If you just say, hey, I'm in real estate, there's someone that says they're in multifamily apartments. That's great. Do you know what market that you want to be in? And some people might say, I'll be in any market that is over, that is a class B city or above. Okay, that I can get behind. If someone says, I'll do business anywhere, okay, that's going to be really tough to kind of narrow down, especially to be effective in networking. So I would invite you to be really, really specific in terms of what core purpose that you is. What business are you specifically in? And be obnoxious about what business that you're not in. Think about Starbucks. Do they sell hamburgers? No, they don't sell hamburgers because they know what business that they're in. In fact, if you see statements from the current CEO right now of Starbucks, they want to kind of get out of the food business. They don't want to be in all these different variety things. They started saying, hey, we're going to start scaling back on our food operations because it doesn't fit our core purpose of being the coffee and drink place. That's the third location in between home and the office. That's what they understand their core purpose. So I really want to invite you getting clear on your core purpose, because if you're not clear, it's not going to magically get more clear in the mind of the customer. Okay. Or certainly not in the nature of your referral partner. Let's look at core values. Now, I'm going to say this right up front. I know core values sound like this squishy stuff that no one cares about, right? They are so tasty. I will admit they are so tasty. And my daughter lives for those chocolate cake pops. But she's 3, so there's that. But that's what I'm saying though. Like this is the thing where they're starting to recognize they got too far away from their core purpose. The core values, this is where you want to start to think about what matters to you about this business, and specifically, how would the world be worse off if you were no longer in business? Who would get left behind if you were no longer in business? That's a really important question for you to ask, because when you're identifying your core values of your business, your core values are an extension of you. So if you end up working for a company that doesn't align with your core values, well, guess what? You're probably not going to stay at that company for very long. I worked for a wonderful company, Marriott. I loved working for the Marriott. It was a really wonderful place to work. I ended up leaving the job, not because of misalignment of core values, but really of a misalignment of really my personal vision, because I wanted to do my own thing. So it really wasn't anything against the Marriott. I wanted to go out and be an entrepreneur. I wanted to go out and be a business owner. And I did. That's exactly what. And so, but had I had a different personal vision, I would have stayed. I would have stayed there. But I also worked for an accounting firm, which paid me very well. And that was where like hope goes to die. Has anybody ever worked for a place like that where just like, oh my gosh, like, am I ever going to see my family again? Like, if you've ever worked for a company like that, that's horrible. And I remember every Sunday afternoon, that creeping dread would come around like, oh my gosh, I have got to go back to work to that place again tomorrow. Ugh, it was the worst feeling in the world. And even though they paid me really, really well, I hated working there because there was such a misalignment of core values. So that's what I'm saying. Think about what matters to you in this business, because again, think about what matters to you personally. And when you start thinking about your personal core values, you start thinking about, well, have you ever had a friend that wandered off the reservation that you had to let go because they just didn't align? There was such a misalignment of core values. You have values, but when you have a value that is so deep within you that you're ready to take action on something, that's how you know it's a core value, right? That's why you might leave a significant other or a friend or someone else, even a family member sometimes, if there's a misalignment of core values. This is really, really important because core values and company brand are inextricably linked. You cannot do this. And we're going to talk about core values here near the end, about the importance of character in your networking, right? We're going to come back to this. So let's look at, we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now we're going to talk about client avatar. This is really, really important, especially if you want to be more effective in your networking. Who specifically and ideally do you want to serve, right? I'm not a Starbucks kind of person. I don't really like their coffee. I think it's a little expensive. And you know what? They're doing just fine. They'll do just fine without me because I'm not their avatar. This is where you want to be magnetic, and you want to attract the people that you want to work with, and you want to repel the people who don't. Look, there was up once in this room 25 people who were in this seminar. There is now 22. Some of you may still drop off. That's fine. Maybe you got different commitments, but maybe you're like, this guy's full of crap. I don't like him. I don't like his face. Okay, you know what? I'm attracting the people who I want to attract and I'm repelling the people who don't. That's okay. If you don't want to be here, there's someone else with a message that's probably more in alignment with your core values. That's probably more in alignment with whose face you like better or whatever. Okay. But this is why you got to be really clear into your client avatar so you can attract you're not going after everybody. Because if you're trying to attract everybody, you'll wind up with nobody. And that's the problem, especially when your marketing efforts are too fragmented. For those of you, it looks like I've got a few marketing students in here. This is about market segmentation. And you have to be really clear in your market segmentation, because if you are not clear on that, you are not going to be effective in your marketing. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of marketing companies out there that do not understand this. They don't get it. And they don't break it down into their avatar into 3 simple areas. They need to break their client avatar down into geographics, demographics, and psychographics. Geographics, demographics, and psychographics. And that's straightforward. Geographics is where they are. Demographics is who they are, right? Age, gender, married, blah, right? Whatever. And then psychographics is how they think. And just think of a simple phrase called ALIA, ALIA, when you're thinking about their psychographics. That is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. That's when you're starting to think about how they think. When you can get in the mind of the customer, like, again, why do you think originally I had this as a networking session around networking mistakes to avoid? No one came. No one wanted it. But when I say, why is my networking not working? All of a sudden I had a lot more people, because I'm starting to get in the mind of my avatar in terms of what's important to them. Right. So it's just testing. This is why you have to be willing to go out there and bloody your knuckles a little bit, metaphorically. But I'm just saying, like, this is why it's important for you to go out there and really understand your avatar and ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions of your avatar about what's bothering them, what's keeping them up at night, and make sure that you know how to service them. So those are the 3 C's of business vision: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. We're going to come back to this at the end. This is not a one and done exercise. You have to take the time to understand the core purpose, the core values, and the client avatar, especially if this is your business. If it's not your business, you still need to understand what's the core purpose that you're being set up to learn and to know and to promote, right? What's the core values of the business? Who are the people we're trying to attract? And specifically in the client avatar, around the geographics, demographics, and psychographics. Make sense? Let me make sure that everyone out there is still alive. All right, Josephine, you're here from SoCal. Very good. You serve investors. Very good. International journalist, moving around a lot. Oh, okay, Patricia. Very good. Working on an MBA in management. Okay, or project management. Excellent. Okay, let's move on. Now we're going to start talking about the 4 core functions of business. The 4 core functions, thanks, Olga. The 4 core functions of business are as follows: lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey happens in that order. They're coming to you, they're made aware of you because of your lead generation. Then they journey into sales. Then eventually there's the operations and fulfillment function, which is whatever the business does. And then there's the accounting function. So really what we're talking about here is in the lead generation function and kind of the sales function, depending on what the nature of the networking is that you're doing. In the context of lead generation just lets the world know that you're out there through a variety of marketing approaches. And there's all sorts of different marketing approaches. There is outbound lead generation. There's inbound lead generation. There's direct response. Let me put a pin in that for a hot second. The difference between outbound and inbound is really just who originates the marketing approach. So in other words, outbound lead generation, you might think of as like interruption advertising. That might be billboards, commercials on the radio, or ads on TikTok, right? These are or ads on Instagram or Facebook, right? That's outbound. It's an interruption marketing. When you're looking at inbound marketing, think of like the customer initiates the search, right? Like, how do I go about removing pimples from my forehead, right? So you type in remove pimples from my forehead, and right, you have this cream or ointment or whatever they call that. I don't even know if anybody uses the word ointment anymore. Man, that just really aged me. So if you've got some sort of salve that is, man, I need to stop with this. All right, well, we're going to go with cream. Let's stop at cream. You've got this cream that will remove pimples from people's foreheads, and you say, cool. And you put that up, and it's searchable through SEO. So now because someone's typed that in, they're like, oh, wow, pimples removing stuff from people's foreheads. It drives them to the website. Now that is inbound. That's an inbound response. So the customer actually initiated the outreach in that way. So the difference between outbound and inbound, that's pretty much it. It's who initiates. Direct response is specifically, let's say for argument's sake, I mail you this piece of paper, and on this piece of paper, it says, hey, for this offer, click this QR code right now, do this right now. That's direct response. That's when you are getting your prospect or your customer to take a very specific action in that moment. And that can be done through either outbound or inbound approach. I like direct response because it's trackable and I know specifically what it is that they're doing. So when you are, by the way, this is what you also need to be doing when you're tracking your stuff, your networking approaches. You need to make sure that you know how these people are coming to you. Because if you're going out and kissing babies and running for mayor in your networking activities, you need to know, like, what's the ROI, the return on investment, through all this networking activity that you're doing. Because if you don't know, you may be wasting a lot of time doing networking that's not producing any sort of fruit whatsoever. Okay. So, yeah, agreed. Direct is better. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And there's a lot of marketing companies out there that really focus on branding. For smaller companies, I really have a lot of difficulty in promoting branding at all. Direct response will get you branding in addition to being trackable and demonstrating an offer and putting stuff out there, which is much more easier to track. Branding is it's not only expensive, it can be very difficult to track its effectiveness. So this is where we're also going to be talking about networking. There's some other things that you can do: alliances, joint ventures, press releases, affiliate marketing. That's not really what we're going to be talking about, but I just wanted to kind of address those out there. So let's talk about networking and word of mouth marketing. So when it comes to word of mouth marketing, there is a universal truth about word of mouth marketing, is that the universal truth is that it's always working. The thing is, and here's the main question, is it working for you or is it working against you? That's the universal truth when it comes to word of mouth marketing. And it's again, the truth is it's always working, but what is the message that's being passed along, and is it favorable for you? The reality is the new gold rush is for attention. Everybody gets this. And so that's why they're always worried about number of views and number of follows and things like that. And even I'm looking at, like, okay, I've got 24 people here I've got probably half of your attention. Some of you are wandering in and out. That's okay. I get it. I'm not mad about that. That's the reality. Because if I get too boring, you're not going to listen to me. And that's on me. That's not on you. That's on me. So you have to make sure that you know how to get and maintain the attention long enough to get your people to take action. Okay. So, because the reality is, if the new gold rush is for attention, money is what follows attention. That's the reality. And I can tell you that as I've gotten more and more attention in what it is that I do, and I've been at this for a while, some of you have never heard my name before, and some of you may never hear my name again. But that would be my fault if you're now in my sphere and you never hear from me. Okay. This is also why, and I don't know that I just remembered I have to put a slide up for this, but this is one thing that you have to remember in terms of follow-up. Actually, I do have a slide for this now that I think about it, but I'm just going to go ahead and finish my thought. This is why you have to have a CRM or something. I don't care if you keep the list of names on the back of a towel. You have to make sure that you have a mechanism to track and follow up and follow through with the people who are now in your sphere. And that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody that's on this call, you're going to get an email from me, like, not from an automated list responder. You're getting it from me. And you're like, oh, wow, this is like really from him. Yeah. Yeah. You know why? Because I want to develop and maintain a relationship with the people who come into my sphere and come into my circle. I'm not looking for hundreds of thousands of people. I only need 1,000 or so, right? Maybe, who would become good referral partners. Okay. Because remember what I asked in the beginning, right? I was asking for a referral. So you have to stop and think about it. If your networking is not working, how do you change this? Because the networking is part of an overall strategy of owning the mental real estate of others who are in your circle. And I'm talking about owning the mental real estate. So let me ask you a very direct question. Like, when it comes to referral based marketing and, networking being just part of this overall lead generation strategy, great. Well, let me ask, if I were to ask the 5 people that were closest to you, what is it that you do for money? Or, I'm assuming for what you're networking for, like for what you're building, right? If I were to ask them, what is it you do? What would I get 5 of the same answers? Honestly. And that might be a good test, and where you go to the people that are the 5 that are closest to you, and you're just going to say, hey, look, I'm just going to ask a question. Describe to me what it is that I do. And if they can't tell you, then you've done a poor job of explaining to them how you make money or who it is that you're looking for. That's not on them. That's on you. There was a woman who is arguably probably one of the most recognizable names in my town when it comes to insurance. And she's been doing it forever. For literally forever. She's had the same spot, the same building in town forever. And I mentioned to her one day, we were talking about just different types of insurance, and she said that her neighbor had purchased life insurance. And she says, "Oh, right, who'd you buy life insurance from?" "Oh, I bought it from so and so, one of her competitors here in town." And she's like, "What? Why? Can I ask why you didn't ask me?" And they said, "Oh, I guess I didn't even think about asking you for life insurance. I just thought you did like home insurance and car insurance," right? That's not on the neighbor. That's on her. So I'm just saying, like, this is why you got to be really clear about the mental real estate that you own for other people. And if some of you are going to be trying to be in like 5 different businesses or 5 different side hustles, and people can't really explain what it is that you do, that's not their fault. There was another guy who had an amazing real estate brand, and he had this very unusual, I'm not trying to be, but it was a very unique color, and it was a very unique brand, right? And he called himself like the king of real estate. I don't remember exactly what it was, but this is years ago. But he called himself like the king of real estate. Then out of the blue, he started selling like some sort of weird herb or like herbal supplements. And I was like, dude, did you lose a bet? You would be on my feed all the time promoting your real estate business, and all of a sudden you start promoting this herbal supplement stuff. It was so weird. It was so out of character. I was like, what in the world? And all it did was diminish the one brand that he was trying to build. And he ended up abandoning it. And I'm telling you, it probably did some real damage to his actual brand in real estate. So you've got to be really clear about protecting your own brand. And if you were to ask those 5 people that are closest to you, what is it you do? What kind of answers would you get? What variety of answers would you get? Right. And that's why business owners are so fragmented and all over the place. And you have to be, because every time you come out of the shower with a new business idea, you have to be careful on what you implement. You can't blame them. You can't blame them for being confused. So you have to own their mental real estate. And you almost have to say, anytime someone says a moving company or, a pharmaceutical rep, or, you start selling athletic wear for Zaya, this is where people absolutely positively start thinking about you. Like, oh yeah, people know me. There's some people who know me strictly in real estate. They don't know me that I do this. You know why? Because I spent 20 plus years building a real estate brand. I wrote several books around real estate. Now that I've shifted up and niched up into the small business space, the small business strategy space, now they're like, oh yeah, there's some people who will know me for that. Right. But trust and know, there's still people who message me, hey, do you have a rental? Like my son's looking for a 2-bedroom. Oh my gosh. Right. That's okay. But they don't know me in that. Right. And I've not done much marketing around my town about what it is that I do here. So this is where you need to be divisive and take a stand. And it's easy to think of politics on this, right? Especially American politics, because it's such a mess right now. But, hear me out. You have to take a stand for something which means that you will exclude some people, and that's okay. Again, this is about being magnetic, and magnets got 2 poles. Some attract, some repel, and that's okay. Don't be worried about that. But you just have to make sure that you are attracting your avatar, and you can't do that if you don't define them. Okay. So, I like working with business owners and entrepreneurs who invest in themselves. And guess what? Not all business owners and entrepreneurs are willing to get up, and are willing to sit on a call with me for an hour to benefit themselves. They're not willing to do that, but you guys are. So you guys are probably more in alignment with my avatar than people who've already left this call. That's okay. Right. So I'm just saying this is where you have to do that. You also need to ask for the referrals, and ask for the referrals from the very beginning. So did you notice what I did at the very, very beginning? I know some of you came in later, but do you notice what I did at the very, very beginning of this? I asked for the referral. Hey, who do you know that is in a service or trade industry that maybe is a general contractor, maybe they own a coffee shop, who is it that has employees? Maybe they're solopreneur or they have less than 20 employees. Who do you know that may be struggling? They're trying to grow, but they're struggling from day to day and maybe wants to have someone that they could work with. That would be a good referral for me. And this is, again, about being very, very, very specific, but you have to ask other people for the referrals. And the thing that I think a lot of people make the mistake of is they don't lead with massive amounts of value. Think about this here for just a second. I would venture to guess in the last 40 minutes or so that some of you have gotten some value out of this. Some of you have gotten massive value of it. Some of you are like, maybe a little bit. There's more value to come. So hang on there, right? But the point is that as I'm leading with value, I'm not coming and sneaking into your Facebook Messenger hey, you want to come and buy my crap? No, I'm leading with value first. You know why? Because the market will judge you by your samples. Your market judges you because if you say, well, you have to buy my stuff and then just trust me that I'm going to deliver, well, that's kind of okay, can you show me that you know a little bit? And this is about leading and starting out and demonstrating competence first and foremost, okay? We're going to come back to that here in a minute. But this is the thing that you have to lead with massive amounts of value, because when you don't lead with massive amounts of value, they have only one way to judge you, and that is by price. They're going to say, well, I don't want to do business with you. I'm going to do business with them because I have no way to judge you how competent you are. So I'm going to go with that guy or that gal over there because they're cheaper. Okay. I mean, if you want to race to the bottom, that's fine with you. But, I don't know about you, but I don't want to compete on price. Okay. So I just want to make sure that you understood this. So I saw nice cookies, and I was glad that you were actually talking about cookies. Okay, very good. I saw a website and that started to make more sense. All right, very good, Josephine. This is why I should not pay attention to the chat without context. All right, let's talk about some success strategies. And first, a couple things we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 15 reasons why people buy. We're going to talk about the 6 principles of persuasion, and then we're going to talk about some mistakes to avoid. So we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes of the networking things that you should do and should not do. So again, okay, I'm waking you up out of your daydreaming state, your alpha state, and bringing you back into beta. That's what I do when you're clapping your hands, when you're standing in the shower, coming up with all those ideas. That's when you're in your alpha state. So, bringing you back to a conscious awareness. This is your beta state. So let's talk about the 15 reasons why people buy. So there are these 15 reasons why people buy. I'm going to get myself out of here so you can take a screenshot if you like. I want you to come up with 15 different ways, right? There's 15 reasons why people will buy and why they'll want to buy from you, okay? So when you're thinking about this, I want you to think of all the ways that your product or service, directly or indirectly, helps them make money. Helps them make money. I want you to think of all the ways, directly and indirectly, how your product or service helps them save money. Directly or indirectly, save time, avoid effort, escape pain, right? More comfort, better health, which can, by the way, you might say, well, I'm not in the health industry. Okay. Well, could you bring less stress to their life? That could be better health. What about gaining praise or feeling more love for the people in their life that they find important, increasing their status among the people in their life? People will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. They will buy for growth. That could be personal growth. That could be physical growth. That could be spiritual growth. They will buy just because something is new and improved. They will buy for certainty or more perceived control. And they will certainly buy to be in contribution to others. In fact, there was a study that had been done that people will pay, I think it's as much as 30% more for a product if they believe that they will be in contribution for a good cause. Right? So financial growth. Perfect, Josephine. Absolutely. Right. So again, these are different things that you want to think about, like educational growth. These are I want you to come up with as many reasons, and all of these 15 categories. Like if you come up with one reason how you can help them make money directly or indirectly, that's not enough. I want you to be thinking about this. Come up with 15 pieces of paper, stick them up on the walls. And as you think of them, I want you to write them down. Because when you are much more clear about how you deliver this to your avatar, it becomes massively more easier for you to have conversations about your avatar and with your avatar, especially in your networking. Because if you're not, again, it doesn't magically become more clear as it leaves your mouth and it gets filtered through their belief system and their value system. It doesn't. If anything, it goes the other way. It gets more cloudy. Think of the telephone game, right? We used to play back in the 3rd grade. Does anybody actually play the telephone game anymore? That used to be really fun. I don't know. I thought that was a lot of fun. And basically it starts in where, one person says something and whispers it all the way to the end. And then by the time it gets to the end, no one knows what actually it is. It's actually quite funny, right? Heck yes. So this is where you're starting to think about the 15 reasons why people buy. So if you're going to spend any time doing something, 3 C's of business vision: core purpose, core values, client avatar, and really get clear on the 15 reasons why people buy. But I also want you to understand why, what are the 6 principles of persuasion? And those 6 principles of persuasion was something written by Robert Cialdini in a book called Influence. And he recognized that there were 6 principles of persuasion, which are reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. So let me unpack these really quickly. Reciprocity is that if I give you something of value, you're going to want to reciprocate. You're going to want to give me something of value. This is how BNI was formulated. Like if I give you a referral, you're going to want to try to repay that referral the best that you can, or at least go around talking me up if I gave you a referral. It stands to reason. That's the principle of reciprocity. So this is the reason why, again, like you guys were willing to give me your email address so you can show up for this because you expected there to be value. Now, some people, again, maybe they had to leave for whatever reasons, but some people left. Maybe they didn't find enough value soon enough. They're like, this guy's full of wind. He's not saying enough. I'm out, right? Nothing new here. Okay. Some of you are like, wow, this is really good. This is helpful. Again, I'm leading with value. So if I showed up and again, at the end, I'm going to show you, I'm just cards on the table. I'm showing you what I'm doing. If I'm going to demonstrate plenty of value up front, some of you are at least going to stick around and listen to my offer. You're like, well, I owe it to the guy to at least listen. Okay. Some of you will leave. That's okay. You're not hurting my heart. Right. But I'm just saying that's reciprocity. You're willing to give an email. You're willing to sometimes you're willing to give money, whatever it is, you're willing to give money or give something up in order to get something back. Like you get something of value, you're willing to pay it back. Right. Commitment and consistency. Again, when you're starting thinking about commitment and consistency, when people make micro commitments along the way, right? First, you give an email. Next thing you know, you buy a $10 ebook. And then the next thing you know, you're paying $1,000 for a weekend. And then next thing you know, you're like $25,000 into like a whole coaching program. You're like, how in the world do we get there? Generally, it's through commitment and consistency. Because we don't like to walk back on our commitments and we want to be consistent in our commitments, many times people will do this. And I say this jokingly, like, oh, this is how people wind up in trunks of cars. Like, hey, can you come help me move this box? And you're like, oh, okay, they seem like a nice guy, right? They were nice, they gave me a compliment. And the next thing you know, right, like bad things happen. I say that somewhat jokingly, but that's actually how that works with like predators and stuff like that. You have to be careful about commitment and consistency because they understand that people don't want to be inconsistent. They don't want to be viewed as inconsistent because they make these micro commitments along the way. Social proof is if I came here and I said, hey, I've never done any of this anywhere, this is all theory, right? You would be like, okay, what social proof does this guy have? Well, what social proof I have is I've written a bunch of books. There are plenty of reviews about me online. There's plenty of Amazon reviews, right? There's things like that are that there's social proof that I at least have some sense that I know what I'm talking about and can talk about that. If you guys didn't have any sense of social proof, you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and there's really no social proof to back that up. Again, some of you have stayed in here for a long time knowing that there's others that have stayed in here. You'll stick around because there's more social proof. If there's only one person in this room, the likelihood of you sticking around is actually much, much less. So that's social proof. And you'll tend to do what the crowd is doing. Let's look at liking. Again, this is easy to confuse for, oh, I like that guy. I want to do, I like him. He's a likable person, which does matter because like Bob Berg had said, who wrote several different networking books, that people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. That is true. But this isn't about liking me as a person. That's more like, are you like me? Is that person like me? Oh, okay. He spoke about being in the corporate world. He spoke about having a business of his own. He spoke about having abject failures and still being pretty successful. I can get behind everything he's saying because he's like me. So if I didn't demonstrate being like you at all, that's probably what some of the people that have left, right? Because they're not of the similar demographic, geographic, or psychographic, they may have left, right? Because I wasn't enough like them. Authority, it's establishing that authority that, okay, hey, oh, he's an author, he's this, he's that, right? Why should I listen to this individual? Why he's demonstrating competence? Sounds like what he's saying is backed up with data and stuff. right? Does he have authority? And then scarcity. Scarcity has to be real scarcity. It cannot be like fake scarcity. Scarcity would be like, have you ever watched like an old commercial? They don't do it so much anymore, but like, hey, for the first 100 callers, you get a free, calendar, right? And then but like 7 months later, they're still saying for the first 100 callers, you still get a free calendar. Like, really? You haven't had 100 people call yet? You've been running this for 7 months, right? So it's got to be real scarcity. Otherwise, that will backfire on you. It's kind of like the last couple of cookies on a plate are much more scarce than an entire plate full of cookies. So that is the 6 principles of persuasion. And understanding that is also going to help you understand how to communicate with your network in a way that helps them move the needle along as fast as possible. So here are some mistakes that I want you to avoid. First and foremost is having an unclear message. And where is your messaging getting murky? Well, if you're not clear in terms of what your core purpose is, I'm in real estate, I'm in insurance, I'm in whatever, pick the thing, right? I'm in fitness, right? So if your message is not clear and it's too complex to understand, that's your fault, not theirs, right? Think about one of the things that Steve Jobs did when he helped Apple release the iPod. What did he do? He walked on stage, he pulled out this little device from his pocket, held it up, and basically said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. And the world went nuts. They were like, what do you mean 1,000 songs in my pocket, right? But that was the beginning of the iPod. If he went up there and started talking megabytes and terabytes and in this, gigahertz and all the other techno jargon, he would have lost them immediately. The point is he had an amazing ability to take something super complex and boiled it down into 5th grade language. And if you're not really sure if it's 5th grade language, understand, like, copy and paste it into Word and you can see where the Fleisch reading scale is. And if it's not between the 5th or 7th grade levels, it's too complex. And even Einstein said, if you can't take a sophisticated or complex concept and talk about it in a way where other people can understand it, you don't know it well enough. So you really got to get clear on that. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. So this is where I want you to make sure that you're really clear about your message. And the other thing is failing to follow up. I cannot tell you how many people do not follow up with their marketing. So it ends up happening like this. I actually keep this prop very close to my desk because it happened. Okay. And this is a stack of business cards. Okay. Now this stack of business cards, I've actually had this on my desk for quite a while, and I know who some of these people are. And there's some of these people I have no clue who they are. Right. But here's the interesting thing. Right? Some human somewhere handed me this stack of cards along the way. Okay. And if they did not make it into my CRM or some sort of list that I'm going to review and reference once in a while, I'm telling you that your networking is going to be massively inefficient, which means you're always going to be meeting new people and you're always going to be doing this churn. It's like, well, they never follow back up with me. So I just, I just don't need to, network any further with them. No, if they don't align with your core values, I could make an argument not to network with them any further. But the thing is, and there's people who I've met who I thought I could get, who I thought I could help, but there was a misalignment of core values. Guess what? We didn't do business together. They didn't like what I was about and I didn't like what they were about. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just saying that's the reality. That's how the world is. So if there are people who I feel that I can help who are in alignment with my core values, I will help them. And sometimes even if they're not totally misaligned from my core values, of course, I'm going to try to help as many people as I possibly can. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to be really specific. And this is why if you have a CRM like Pipedrive or Salesforce or something like that, or Go High Level, there's literally no shortage of follow-up. I mean, I don't really care. Again, you can write it on the back of a paper towel or just keep in a simple Excel spreadsheet, but you have to work that list. And I would say generally around 45 days, I want to make sure that, especially for people that I want to maintain a relationship with, about every 45 days is the minimum, right? Now you can overdo it. But I would say somewhere between 3 weeks and 45 days is roughly how often you want to be reaching out to people who you want to be active in your network. For outside of that, people start to forget you after about 45 days. And that's not their fault. That's yours. It's not their job to remember you. So I'm just making this point, don't fail to follow up. Make sure you have a mechanism to do that. Monopolizing, this is monopolizing people's time, monopolizing their inbox, right? So if you've ever been at a networking event, and I know some of you introverts in here, you can and should be selective on who you work with. You can avoid problems down the road. Absolutely, Ben. Well said. Very well said. And not to mention, Ben, it's just easier, right? Like when you start aligning with the people who you know, like, oh, they're part of my tribe, right? Like I will like working with them, even though they're not necessarily a client or customer, but they're part of my tribe. These are part of the people that I like working with. So monopolizing people's time, this is really something that also often happens at networking events. But I also see this happen where people they're trying too hard to get into my circle. And I'm like, whoa, man, too much too soon. Like, light a candle, romance me a little bit, right? Like, come on, too much too soon. Or like, if you've ever gone to a networking event and like this person is like, you're my networking person, like you're my guy for the night. And you're like, oh, okay, I kind of want to see other people, right? So you have to recognize that there should be this internal clock, just like a quarterback in American football, where, like they take the ball and they're like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000 throw. They know that the pocket is collapsing, right? They know they've only got a certain amount of time before that, they're going to get rushed. So this is what also happens during a networking thing. And I will say that extroverts probably do the opposite of this, is that they try to hit too many people in a room, where introverts try to monopolize someone's time. So that's why I put monopolizing or under monopolizing. Basically, you want to make sure that you're spending enough time, but not saying, hey, look, I'd love to continue the conversation. Do you have a card by chance? And then what I generally do, right? So what I've done is, you can't really see it on the back here, but this is a person who I met through BNI, and we stay in touch. And on the back of the card, and what you're generally going to see, so in my pocket, I almost always carry a Sharpie, but it almost carries a blue Sharpie. And on the back, I write the context and how I met that person. Okay, so that's about monopolizing their time, and that helps me keep things clear. Inauthenticity is something else you want to avoid. Don't try to pretend to be someone you're not. Don't try to pretend, just be honest. If you're new in things, or you're restarting or rebuilding, just make sure that you're authentic. So you're reminding me of Impractical Joker's punishment. They made Sal go to a networking event with one business card, and to find the one most important person, and he had to hand it and ask for it back. That's great. My sons love that show. They say I look like Murr. Ugh, whatever. Not knowing the crowd, especially the crowd that you're actually talking to. And you have to know the crowd. Like, if it's more of a, is it more of a business type of crowd? You have to make sure that you're showing up in a way that's authentic, and knowing how to connect with the crowd, and having too loose of a tongue, like being, like, again, I generally never swear on these sorts of events. I don't want to say never, but pretty rare do I swear on these sorts of things. But you also have to be careful about the type of crowd. You have to know the crowd that you're in, and being familiar with the crowd that you're working, and understanding the relationship between being transactional and relational. Transactional, men tend to be more transactional, like, oh, you have a stone and I need a stone, I'm going to buy stone. Here's money, you give me stone, right? That's transactional. Women tend to be more relational, like, hey, you got a stone? Cool. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're like, dude, I just want you to buy my stone, right? So that's what I'm saying, like, transactional versus relational. And that is a very broad brush, but I'm just letting you know that sometimes you have to understand that some people need to get to trust in a little bit longer period of time. And the thing is about getting to trust. Oops, hold on 1 second here. Okay, the thing about getting to trust, you want to get to trust as quickly as possible, and you do that by demonstrating competence, right? So Bob Berg, he said that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And in my opinion, trust is the king of all of these things. And the fastest way to create trust is to demonstrate competence, that you know what you're talking about. So if you are not there and you're not really sure what you're talking about, that's why you need to be authentic. You really need to know your avatar, and you really need to know what your core purpose is and what your offers are. And the fastest way, by the way, to destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character. So if you're up there and you're telling fibs and you know that they're not fibs, your body, it may show in your body language, but the fact is, man, you're just the fastest way you can assassinate your trust or destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character. So here's the thing. Another thing is to have a support system, with people who you are networking with. If you have different things that you are struggling with, it's always great to have a support system. This is something that I offer here for free. So if you would like, I'm gonna go ahead. If I can get Michelle or Lauren, if you guys could put the link up to the Facebook page. For those of you who are in the Facebook community and you would like to be part of this, you can go ahead and go to this link. It's an event. It's a group within Facebook. And again, all I just say is don't be a jerk. If you're a jerk, don't come. And if you know you're a jerk, don't come. And it even asks, are you a jerk? So if that's it, that's pretty much it. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to stick around for just a hot second if you want to type in your question. But here's the thing. That's the end of the presentation. I am going to show you just something that might be valuable to you, and that is related to the course. So if you want to hop off now, I promise you're not going to hurt my feelings. I will be sending you the replay here in the next day or so. So please keep an eye out for that. And you can join us for free in the Time Wealthy VIP room. Okay. So assuming everybody is here, you are of your own free will. You are more than welcome, Josephine. Thank you for sticking around. I appreciate you. This will probably take about 5 to 7 minutes just to kind of show what I'm going to demonstrate here if you are interested. And I'll just going to go do that. Got some important stuff to do. Okay, all good. No problem at all. So this is what I'm going to show you right now. This here is the Strategic Life and Business Blueprint. This is a video course that, so it's not just a course though. I'm going to be giving you a couple of different things. Let me just demonstrate what the course is all about and also what some other things are that is going to be all in this that really might help accelerate you, specifically if you're a business owner or solopreneur or anything like that. This is really designed for you. If you're in business, trying to do business with someone else, this could benefit you for sure, but I'm just letting you know this is designed for business owners and entrepreneurs. So what this is specifically, I'm actually going to kill the screen share just a hot second because I'm going to show you something what is inside the video course itself. So if you go, give me 1 minute here so I can move this around. This is in the slideshow. So what this is a video course, and it's really just kind of it's kind of a self-paced learning. You can do this at any let's see here, share screen. Sorry, this takes so long, guys. This is why I give everybody the opportunity to bounce if they don't want to stick around. Okay, so this is it here. Let me just get myself out of the way, down to the bottom. This is the video course. And see here, Kelsey, there we go. Take myself all the way out. So this is the video course in here. It's called the Strategic Life and Business Blueprint. And there is a ton of stuff that's in here. I'm just going to go ahead and break this down. This is the Viper method broken down from you've got the personal vision workshop all the way in through here. And you can see I'm just selecting this one sub menu in here. This is just 10 videos long. It's about an hour and a half worth of training, which really helps you get really, really clear on your personal vision. And from there, this is really going to help you. So you're not going to be trying to wander around, trying to figure out what your personal vision is. This is really going to help you get there much, much faster. From the core values perspective, which is what we talked about in the business vision, this is also going to help you determine your personal core values. So you've got your personal values roadmap right here, which is also going to give you a guided video series right in through here in terms of developing and understanding and uncovering your personal core values. That third one down here is the business vision discovery course. And this business vision, again, it kind of walks you through the core purpose, the core values, and client avatar. And this is all of the stuff that's really around your business vision. So if you're really trying to get deeper in your business, if you're setting up a business and you want to do all of this stuff and have it much, much faster and not have to read a bunch of books and stuff like that, this is really going to help you do that. In section 2, this is what you start to figure out after the vision. And this really starts to break into the 4 core functions of business. And this is an introduction to the lead generation, the understanding traffic temperatures. And when I'm talking about traffic, let me bring myself back up on screen here. When I'm talking about traffic, what I'm talking about is not like, oh, I understand traffic. I look at traffic from a little bit different than most marketers. I look at frozen traffic, cold traffic, hot traffic, or I'm sorry, frozen traffic, cold traffic, warm traffic, and hot traffic. And when you're looking at that from that perspective, understanding frozen traffic versus cold traffic versus warm traffic versus hot traffic, you have to talk to that type of traffic differently. You can't talk to all of them the same way. And if you're trying to talk to your frozen traffic who are not problem aware, they're not even aware they have a problem, the same way that you're talking to your warm or hot traffic who are, yeah, they might be aware that they have a problem and they might be aware that they have a solution, but they're not aware of who you are. That's warm traffic. They're problem aware, they're solution aware, but they're not you aware. That's hot traffic. Hot traffic is problem aware, solution aware, and they are aware of you. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to buy. It just means that you can communicate that with them differently. In fact, you have to communicate with hot traffic differently than cold traffic. And if your stuff isn't converting, it's because you're maybe trying to have cold traffic conversation with warm traffic or vice versa, because they do need to be communicated with differently, and understanding that difference is really, really important. So that's about that. Different lead generation things, and through here, infrastructure and processes, things that you need to be putting together, stuff around your sales function, solutions-based selling. I kind of do an intro on that. And then as I'm going to collapse this down, I'm just going to, again, wrap this up here. There's lead generation stuff. There's a lead generation mini course around all different functions around lead generation. In fact, this one right here, this is my latest one that I just uploaded. This is around how to write and publish a book as a business owner. And this is a fantastic way that you can generate leads by writing and publishing books. This last piece here is the money and finance course. This is all stuff financial and really understanding the basics, not about making you an accounting person, but just understanding enough of accounting from the perspective of the of understanding the balance sheet, the income statement, how you can avoid growing broke and things like that. Because a company could be making money and making more sales, but actually being less efficient at making dollars, so you're actually making less money. So this is really, really important from a business owner's perspective. So this is all stuff around the course. So here's what I'm going to offer you guys. If you want to go ahead and put the link up to this, Lauren, I would appreciate it, or Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. So here's what I'm going to offer you guys. You're going to get complete access to all of this. And not to mention, if I have any other courses that I ever offer, they will be plugged into this. So, there's nothing else to buy. There's no other course to buy. So there's everything that's in here. There's one price of $197, and that includes all of my books, which is all of these books right here. If you are domestic US, if you're domestic US, you will get this copy of the Time Wealthy Advantage, plus all of my guides, and you'll get all of this in the strategic black box. And if you're not domestic US, or you don't want the books, there's a different price of $179. So if you don't want the books and you want access to the video course, it's $179. If you want the books and you're domestic US, I'm being a curmudgeon about that. The best way to get the books, if you are interested, is to get them through Amazon. If you're outside the United States, but they're a lot cheaper if you buy them direct through me. And if you want to buy just the books, you can find that on my website at strategicboardroom.com. But here's the thing. So I'm going to offer the course for either the course of $197 plus the books, or just the book, the course by itself, which is $179. But either way, I'm going to throw in a 55-minute strategic coaching session with me directly. We can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about lead generation. We can talk about sales. We can talk about operations and fulfillment function. We can talk about hiring, firing, setting up core values. We can talk about really whatever it is that you want. We can talk about the accounting function, really whatever it is, because I'm a strategist and I have lots of tools in my toolbox around a very specific avatar. So that is included in all of that. So just to reiterate what all of this is, for $197, you would get the video course plus all future updates. There's nothing else to ever buy in terms of the video stuff. You will get a copy of the Time Wealthy Advantage. I will sign it. Plus, I'll send the other 4 guides, which the guides are around lead generation, sales, accounting, and strategic one sheets. So those are the 4 guides that you will get. And you will get a 55-minute session with me. That's for $197. If you don't want the books, You'll get the video course. You get the 55-minute session with me for $179. So that's everything that I have. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. I really appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day, guys. We'll send out the video link, the replay here in the next day or so. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. Yeah, Dark Rose, we do have that. We do. We'll be in touch. You bet, Elga. Thank you, Elizabeth.